Welcome back to the Arbitress YouTube channel. In today's class, we'll be learning how to make this beautiful asymmetric jumpsuit. Okay, so the jumpsuit has like a cape, which is this in front and at the back. It's a very simple tutorial and it's a fitted jumpsuit. It has no zipper, so we use the stretchy fabric for this. I actually use the lycra fabric for this, and it is really simple to make. You just need to follow the tutorial. If this is what you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. So I'll be drafting this on this paper. Actually, I would have loved to draft it directly on the fabric, but the fabric I'm working with is a stretchy fabric, as you can see. So it keeps shifting, and the chalk that I'm working with is not showing very well on the fabric. So I'm going to be drafting on the paper, then I'll transfer it to the fabric. So the reason why I chose a stretchy fabric is because I want it to be easy to wear, because I'm not going to be adding a zipper to this. As you can see, this jumpsuit it has like a cape on it. Okay, so I don't think a zipper will sit well. Okay, so this is the back. You can see the cape, so I don't want any zipper at the back here, and so that it will be easy to wear, that is why I chose to use a stretchy fabric, so that it can expand and make room for the wearer to wear it from the upper part. Okay, so to do this now, I've drafted my upper part of the jumpsuit. Remember, it's going to be having the upper and the lower part. So this is the upper part of the jumpsuit, and as you can see, the neckline is an asymmetric neckline. So I've drafted my upper part now, and I'm cutting, because this is, I don't actually need all this allowance because the fabric is very stretchy. So but for the purpose of those that may want to use this with a normal fabric, that is how I'll be adding this allowance. In fact, I can even reduce from my measurement so that it can be clinging to the body very well. So I just added 1-inch seam allowance for my basic bodice upwards, but I don't actually need this. So I'll be using this to cut the front and also the back, because it's not going to be having any zipper, and it's not going to be having a dart also, because like I said, it's a very stretchy fabric, so it's going to be clinching to the body once you get your measurement right. So now to connect my asymmetric neckline, I'm going to be connecting from one neckline, depending on the size that you choose. So I'm going to be connecting from this neckline upwards here, and then I'll be connecting it to this armhole here, okay, using my curved ruler. So if you want to connect from left to right, you connect from here to here. But if you want to connect from right to left, like what we have in the picture here, you can connect it from your shoulder, from your shoulder here diagonally. So I'm choosing it to connect from this side. So to do that now, I'm just going to take my curved ruler now, and then I'm going to connect it from here to, so this is where my allowance stops. So from there now, I'm going to be connecting it in a curved manner. So if your curve cannot take it once, you can do this in bits, but just get something as smooth as possible. So from here now, from this upper part now, I'm going to follow this curve now, and then I'm going to connect it to my armhole. So after connecting to my armhole like that, I'll take my scissors and then I'll trim this off. Okay, so I have this now, and like I said, I'll be using this to cut both my front and my back. So the waist measurement I'm working with is 7 inches. So this part is actually very important, because remember, you're going to be joining this to the trouser part. So whatever you have on your waist for your upper part, which is the basic bodice, you have to have that as the waist for your trouser also. So my waist is 7 inches, which is here, which is supposed to be here actually. So I used a different approach to do this, and then I added 1-inch allowance, which means by the time I'm through, I'll have everything to be 8 inches in total. And like I said, this allowance, I don't need it. I'm just using this for the illustration purpose. So if I'm transferring it to my fabric, I'll be chopping this allowance off because it's not needed. Okay, and then the actual measurement that I'm using for my waist is from my waist to shoulder is 17 inches, so I added 1 inch allowance to it to make it 18 inches because I'm going to be joining it on the waistline to the trouser by ½ inch, and then I'm going to be joining the shoulder also by ½ inch. That was why I have 18 inches here. So now we just move straight to the trouser part. Okay, so for the trouser I have my measurements like this. So I left 1 inch allowance here on the upper part before I started, and then also I left 1 inch allowance on this side too. Then from my waist I'll measure, remember I've gone down by 17 inches, so this is my 17 inches from my waist. I'm starting from there, and then I'm going to take my full measurement. So the full measurement that I want to work with here is 62 inches including allowance, and then this paper is not up to 62 inches, so I'm just going to stop it where it stopped here. But if you're measuring, you need to subtract what you have taken for your waist, for your half length measurement, which is 17 inches in this case, and then from there you measure from your full length. So after settling that, from your waist measurement you're going to be taking your crotch depth. So from my waist measurement, my crotch depth is 11 inches, so I've measured from this line, which is my waist, not from the allowance, from my actual waist measurement. Let me just label this W, and then I'll have this as my crotch measurement. So now, like we said, my waist, the waist I'm working with is 28 inches divided by 4 is going to give me 7 inches, which I have here. So you're going to be having your 7 inches here. You are going to be adding a dart to this. You had 1 inch allowance for your dart, but I'm not adding a dart to this. Also, if you are going to be adding a seam allowance to this, you add another 1 inch. So if you're adding that, you had 1 inch for that. If you're having seam allowance, you add 1 inch for seam allowance. But I'm not adding that. In fact, I do need seam allowance because it's stretchy, but I'm just going to be putting the seam allowance for illustration purpose, so that if you're not working with a stretchy fabric, you know what to do. So now I'm adding, this is my actual 7 inches, then I'm adding just 1 inch for my seam allowance. So I have 8 inches there. So the 8 inches that I have there, I'm going to take it down to my crotch measurements also, and then I'll put it here. Then I'm going to make this into a straight line. So I just want to check to be sure that what I have here is correct. So my 8 inches is here, and then the 8 inches is here also. So I'll take my ruler, sorry. Okay, so the 8 inches is there. I'll take my ruler now and then make that into a straight line. So after connecting this now, the next thing now is to take my thigh measurement. The thigh measurement, that's around your thigh. You take that measurement loosely. This is a palazzo jumpsuit, so it's not going to be tight. I think I already have a tutorial on how to draft a palazzo trouser, so you may want to check that out too, because this may not be that explicit because I've done most of the illustration there. So now the next thing to do now is to take your thigh measurement. The thigh measurement I'm working with is 24 inches divided by 2 is going to give me 12 inches. Okay, you divide your thigh measurement by 2, so that's going to give me 12 inches, and the 12 inches I'm going to be taking it from this allowance part. Remember when I was taking the waist measurement, I did not take it from the allowance. This is for me in order for me to be able to shape the waist later. So now I'm going to be taking that 12 measurement from here, from the outer part here, and then I'm going to measure it. Again, after taking your measurement, for me I don't actually need allowance, but for the illustration purpose I'll be adding 1 inch seam allowance to that. Okay, but for me I don't need it because I'm using a stretchy fabric. So now I'm just going to take that measurement there. Then for my crotch, draw my crotch curve, I'm going to measure what I have here. That's from my waist measurement to my crotch measurement. So here I have 4 inches. What I have here, I'm going to be dividing this by 4, and that's going to give me 1 inch. So the 1 inch, I'm going to come out here diagonally by the 1 inch. Okay, so I have the 1 inch here. Then using my curve, I'm going to draw my crotch, my crotch. Okay, so I'll draw my crotch curve. I don't want, you have to do this right because you don't want your crotch curve to be too deep, so that your trouser will not be packing on the crotch area. Okay, So I have my crotch curve like that, and then just like I was saying, remember that we did not take our waist measurement from here. So in order for it to match up like this, we're going to be using the curved side of our ruler to connect this like this, so that we'll have a nice curve. So this is me shaping my trouser. Okay, so now this is the upper part of the trouser. So because this is a palazzo trouser, like I said, from here I just want it fitted up to the crotch area here. So from here, whatever I have here, I'm just going to take it straight down to the hem line. So I have 13 inches here, so I'm just going to measure the 13 inches on the hem line also, and then I'm going to make that into a straight line. So it is that simple. So this is not going to be having any dart because it's a stretchy fabric. So now I'm done with my front body. I'm just going to cut it out now, and then I'll work on the back. Okay, so before I go over to the back, on my waist measurement for the front, okay, so let me just take this paper out. On my waist measurement for the front, to shape it, I like to go down by 1 inch on the waist area here, and then I'll take my ruler now and then connect it back. So you don't need to go, if you do too much, it's like taking a dart. You can just go by 1/2 inch or quarter, 3/4. So let me go by 1/2 inch, okay, because this is a jumpsuit. And then from there now, I'm going to be connecting it back to the side like this. Okay, so the reason why we actually left the allowance here, remember we're going to be sewing this to the upper part, so I'm going to be adding 1/2 inch allowance, so that I'll have enough allowance to sew it back. So I have 1/2 inch here, and then I'm going to connect it back. Okay, so now I have that. I'm going to trim that off. So the 1/2 inch allowance that I have there is what I'm going to be using to sew this to my basic bodice. So I have that as my width. It's a bit slanted there. So now I'm going to bring a fresh paper, and then I'm going to place this on top of it to cut my back. So I'm going to be leaving some space for allowance on the upper part here, and then I'll arrange it well. Then I'll do some few adjustments to the back. Okay, so for the back, because of the bum, remember the front is flat while there is a bum at the back. So here I'm going to be extending this crotch line by 2.5 inches. Okay, if the person you are working with is actually big, you can make this 3 inches. So I'm extending this by 2.5 inches. Then this line, this diagonal line that I have here, I'll extend this also by 1.5 inches. Okay, so I'm just coming up by 1.5 inches like this, and then I'm going to take my ruler, my curved ruler now, and then connect them together. So if my ruler cannot take it all at once, I'm going to connect it in bits. So from there now, I'll connect it to this crotch curve, and then I'll connect it back to my waist. I'm not adding any allowance to this part. Okay, so I'll connect it back to the upper part like this. Okay, so that is the only difference. So the another difference that I'm going to be having here on this upper part here for bum rise, on this middle part, I'm going to be going up at this center part, not on this side. That's the center front where we have our crotch curve. I'm going to be going up here by 2 inches or 1.5 inches. Okay, so 1.5 inches is fine for me. I'll be going up by 1.5 inches to accommodate the bum, and then I'll be connecting it back to this side like this. Okay, so just watch my tutorial on how to make a palazzo trouser. It is quite simple to make. So after doing that now, you can actually add allowance to this side of your palazzo, but I don't like my palazzo too big, so I'm not going to be adding any allowance. I'm just going to connect this from this crotch curve, then connect it to somewhere here. Okay, so I just find a nice curve now, and then connect it like this, and then blend it in. So after connecting it, I'm going to be cutting this out now. That's it. my back. Okay, so remember that we already added allowance for joining the front together, so that allowance also covers for the back. It has automatically been transferred to the back, so I don't need to add a separate allowance to the back again. Okay, and like I said, your waist measurement for the trouser and for the main bodies have to be the same, because you are still going to join them together. So now this is our main bodies here, and this is my center front. If I place them on each other, so you can see that the waist measurement matches. So they have to match like this so that you're able to join them together. So now I'll take this now and cut it on our fabric, then I'll bring it back to show us. I'm going to cut this on my main fabric now, and as you can see, I've chopped off the 1-inch allowance that I have on this side for better fitting, because this fabric is actually very stretchy. So I don't want it to be too big. So I cut for the back, and then remember I stopped the length where my paper stopped here. So I added the remaining when I was cutting on my fabric. Don't forget. Okay, so I cut for the front and the back, and then for my upper bodies also, I've also cut for my front and back. So the next thing that I want to do now is to sew them together on the crotch, both front and back. So you can see the thread now. I use the red thread so that you can see it well. So I've sewn the crotch for the front, and also this is the back. The crotch is also sewn. So after sewing the crotch for the front and back, I'm going to be opening it up like this. Then I'll bring in my upper bodies, and then bringing in my upper bodies, I'm going to take it to the machine now, and then sew the upper parts also together like this. Okay, so I'll sew the upper parts both for the front and back. I'm going to sew it together. Then after sewing the upper part together, this video is already very long, so after sewing the upper part together, I'm going to sew this also on the shoulder. So after joining the shoulder, I'll bring it back so that will not be too overwhelmed. Okay, so I've joined it together now, the upper bodies to the trouser part. So you can see I joined it by the 1/2 inch that I left on both front and back, and then I also joined the shoulder together. So this is what we'll have. The next thing I'm going to do now is to join this together by the crotch. That's the front and the back. So I'm going to be turning it to the right side now. I'll match up the crotch. Okay, so you join the crotch area first before you join it on the side. So I'll match it up now, and then join it downwards like this, and then from the center also you can use your pin to hold it first. I'm going to join it on this side also. So when I finish joining the crop, I'll take it together, and then I'll shape the sides. So the crotch is joined now, as you can see. You can see the joining that I have on the crotch to the downside. So now the next thing is to start matching it together, and then join it on the sides. Okay, so you can see the waistline matches. They have to match like this so that you're not going to be running into any problem when sewing it. So you match it to the lower part like this on both sides, then you're going to be joining it. Okay, so I've sewn this now. As you can see, I've sewn it on the side. I shaped it by around 1 inch, and remember I chopped off my seam allowance when I was sewing this. So because it's a stretchy fabric, I still had to sew it by 1 inch, and it is still going to fit because it can stretch as much as possible. So if you're not using a stretchy fabric, you will need to add your allowance just like we drafted on the paper. Okay, but if you are working with a stretchy fabric and you want this to be really fitted, you need to work according to your fabric, because the fabric is stretching on this side also on the upper part to reduce folding or to eliminate folding at the center back. I forgot to mention this when I wanted to sew it when I wanted to sew the back bodies to the trouser. I went up here by 1 inch at the center back on fold. So I went up by 1 inch, and then I connected it diagonally like this to the side back, and I cut this up. Okay, so this is going to help me to remove any folding or gaping that may want to be at the waistline of the center back like this. So I did this, so please take note of that. So now the next thing to do now is to cut out our cape. So I decided to sew my jumpsuit before cutting the cape because I don't want the cape to have any joining on this side. Okay, if you don't mind any joining on your cape, in fact, if I have enough fabric, it's not going to be having a joining on the shoulder also. So if you don't mind any joining, you can cut it, but there is really no difference. So this is the jumpsuit now after turning it to the right side. Okay, so this is what we have. So now the next thing is to cut her cape. So I'm going to bring in my fabric now, but I'm just going to explain with the paper how I'm going to be cutting it. Okay, so to cut out the cape, I'm just going to place my jumpsuit on the paper like this. So if I'm cutting it, I'll cut it directly on my fabric, but for us to see what I'm doing, I'll be placing it on the paper. So like I said, if you don't mind it being shaped at the waistline like this, you can cut it in a way that is not going to be having any seam on the sides. But if you want it to have that effect on the side also, you just trace that with it. So after placing it like this, I'm going to just mark out my shoulder. Okay, then after marking out my shoulder like that, I'm going to trace out the asymmetric neckline that I have. Okay, so you don't have to cut it after sewing your jumpsuit. You can cut it while drafting, but I just prefer to cut it like this. Okay, so after having that, now the next thing is to shape it. The paper I had earlier was small, so you just need to trace this out. Okay, so this is your shoulder, and then this is your neckline. Okay, so after tracing it out, you can just come straight like this if you don't want it to have joining. But if you don't mind the joining, you can also shape it on the side. So to shape it on the side, you just need to follow the shape that you have here, and then you take it down like that to your hemline. So after shaping it like that, you may want to note your center front so that I can guide you in shaping it. Okay, so this is my center front, and this is where it stops on my crotch. So you can remove this. So after removing this now, from the crotch downwards, you take it straight like that, or you follow any shape that you desire. So from that point here down, from this point here where I have it at the center front here, on my chest area, which is this, which is like the armhole area. So on this armhole area, I'm going to take my tape rule and measure. Okay, so I'm going to measure like my nipple to nipple measurement. Okay, so this is like the center front here. Okay, so this is the center front. From that center front, I'm going to measure like, okay, let me be sure. Okay, this is the center front. So from that center front, I'm going to measure like nipple to nipple measurement. But this person is 7 inches, is 7 inches divided by 2 is going to be around 3.5 inches. So that is going to guide you on how you're going to shape it. So you can see that it just falls around the nipple area at this point. I hope you can see it. Okay, so you can see the shape just fall on this side. It falls around the nipple area, then it goes to the center front, and then it takes it down like that. Or if you have any shape you desire aside this, you can follow it. So following that now, this is going to guide me. I'm just going to take my ruler now, and then I'm going to connect it. You can also extend your shoulder. You don't have to use the exact shoulder that you have. So if you extend that shoulder, you connect it from that point to this area like this. Then after connecting it, you connect it to the center front downwards like this also, and then you connect it to go and meet the trouser part. Okay, so that is how you shape the cape. So now the parts that you'll be sewing, remember we've shaped this now. I'll be sewing it on the shoulder, so I'll add 1/2 inch allowance there. I'll also be sewing it on the side so that this shape can come out. I'm going to be adding 1/2 inch allowance there also. So after adding all those allowances, I can now cut this out. Okay, so I just realized it's not showing, so let me shift this paper. Okay, I hope you can see it. I added 1/2 inch allowance on this side, and then 1/2 inch allowance on this side where I shaped it. I had to shape the cape now, and I added allowance on this side, and then I decided to add allowance on this side also because I'll be adding like a small ribbon as trimming on that part also. So I added allowance. So you just take it straight down to your full length. Remember, this is just a paper and the fabric will be too long, so that's why I'm explaining with a paper like this. So after shaping it like this, before you cut it on your fabric, you can decide to check how it's going to look like on your jumpsuit. So you just take your jumpsuit, line it on the table like this, and then you place it on it. Okay, so after placing it on it, this is what it is looking like, and I guess I'm okay with it. Okay, so I hope you can see this. So if you are not okay with this shape, you can also change it to any shape that you want. Okay, I hope you can see it better this way. So this is how the cape is going to lie. So now I'm going to be cutting this on my fabric. Then after cutting it on my fabric, I'll sew it on the shoulder and then sew it on this side also. Then I have a blue ribbon. Okay, so I have this blue ribbon. I'm just going to be using it to turn it on this side so that it will be neatly finished. I'll use the ribbon to, I'll sew the ribbon like this and then use it to turn it out and then top stitch on it, so that that part, remember that part is going to be showing, so that that part will be neatly finished. So after doing that, now I'm just going to sew it on the shoulder and the sides like I said. Then I'll bring it back to show us how we are going to be using them to turn each other. Remember that this does not have any lining and the neckline area is too rough, so I'm going to be using the cape to turn the neckline area. Okay, so the cape is cut now, and I went ahead to sew it by 1/2 inch like I said on the side all the way to the hem line like I said, and then I also sew it on the shoulder. So now I added my blue trimming to the tip so that it can be neatly finished. You can see how neat it is looking now, and then I just folded it outwards, then I top stitched on it. So now this is what it looks like on the right side. You can see the effects that are blue trimming, so you should get something better. I just have this ribbon at home, so you can use trimming, you can use band, you can use whatever it is that you can, that is of a contrasting color, so that it will show, and then something that will beautify it. So this is what it's looking like on the right side. So now to turn the neckline, I'm going to bring in the jumpsuit, and then I'm going to be placing the jumpsuit. Remember, it's going to be on it like this. Okay, so it's supposed to be on it like this. So if we have this, then we have something like this. So now to turn it neatly, I'm just going to be folding it like this. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and pin it round, so I'll match it together. So the shoulder will go with the shoulder, the side seam is going to go with the side seam, then I'll pin it round and take it to the sewing machine and sew. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew it round. Okay, you can see I just sew it by just tiny, like 1/4 of an inch. I sew it round, then now I'm going to turn it so that we'll see what it is looking like. Okay, so if you want to neatly finish this side, you just need to open it up here, then you turn it like the way we normally turn our shoulder. Okay, well, I think it's fine for me here. Then this is what it is looking like now. So I'm going to arrange this so that we will see what our cape is looking like. So you can see the effects that the cape is giving. It just comes that way, and like I said, if you don't want it, if you want it to be another shape, you just need to follow whatever shape it is that you want. You don't have to follow this particular shape. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and our jumpsuit is ready now. So now the next thing now is just to take it to the mannequin so that we'll see what this is looking like. Okay, so this is our jumpsuit now. It's completed, and you can see that the neckline now has been neatly turned. So you just need to hem your armhole with maybe a bias or whatever it is that you wish to hem it with, and this is a full view of the jumpsuit. You can see how lovely this is looking, and like I said, I used a stretchy fabric, so there's no zipper in this, and it was still easy to wear. So you can see how fitted it is. This is it on the sides, and you can see that it is fitted. This is the hip area and this is the leg. So it's a palazzo trouser, but it's not too big at the same time. So this is what we have, and this is it on the upper part. So just look at our crotch. You can see how flat the crotch is lying, so you just need to follow the measurements well, and you're going to get something this beautiful. So I like to use, if you're working with yours, remember you always use a matching thread. I like to use a contrasting thread because this is a tutorial and I want everybody to see what I'm doing. So this is our cape. You can style it anyhow you want. You can actually bring it forward like this, or just raise it to the sides, or however it is that you want this to start. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Okay, let me show us the back. Okay, so this is the back also, and you can see that the back is also fitted, just like we have it fitted at the front area. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.